Welcome to the Ben Buzz. I'm Benny King, and today I'm really excited for all the college football games that we have going on today. It's going to be very exciting. Got some very top-level teams. Even though it's the first week, we've got some really great top 10 matchups. And, just across the board, there's going to be a lot of great games. We're really going to see who's real, who's here to stay, who's at the top. And, of course, we're going to have several games that really end up being the separator, where we have like a top 3 matchup in number 1 Texas taking on number 3 Ohio State. There's number 6 Notre Dame at 10 Miami, number 9 LSU at 4 Clemson. There's a lot of great games today, and I'm very excited to preview all of them. Now, with all that said, I'd like to give a very big shout out to Lee Corso, and it's not much coming from my podcast, but you know what I mean, because Lee Corso, such an incredible guy, and such an incredible, if you don't know him, he's a College Game Day legend, and he's been a coach. He's been incredible at College Game Day. If you've ever watched it, he's the guy who puts on the headgear when he makes his game pick. And Lee Corso is such a great guy. We love him, and it's unfortunate that he has to retire, but he's definitely getting to that age, so I get it. But he's such a legend, and College Game Day is never going to be the same without him, and we're definitely never going to forget all that he's done for not only college football, but just announcers and broadcasters across the board, where even like me have been influenced by the legend Lee Corso. Now let's get into some of these game picks, and I feel pretty good about a lot of these. Syracuse at number 24, Tennessee. Now this one's interesting, but both teams are kind of losing a lot. They're kind of unknown. Syracuse lost Kyle McCord to the draft, right? Of course, the Ohio State transfer that they got last year, now he's gone, and he really led that Syracuse offense to crazy points week after week. Now who's going to be are they going to be the same without Kyle McCord? And then you look at number 24 Tennessee, and they got rocked by Ohio State, being the team that they were last year, but Ohio State ended up going on to win it, so everyone kind of gave them a pass because they're we didn't realize how good Ohio State was going to be in this playoff. So Tennessee did lose Nico Iamaleava to UCLA, but Nico, that whole situation was really weird, but Tennessee, I think that they will be able to trudge on without him. And I know Nico's a solid QB, and Syracuse is just kind of an unknown to me. And they hadn't done much, they weren't winning too much before Kyle McCord. And then even when he was there, they were just barely cracking the outskirts of the top 25. I think Tennessee has a much higher ceiling than Syracuse. I think it's possible Syracuse gives them a run for their money, but I got to go with Tennessee here. Number 24, Tennessee. I'm going Tennessee 31 to Syracuse 20. Now, next one, going Old Dominion at number 20, Indiana. Now, Indiana, certainly one of the surprise playoff teams of last season. Did not think that they were going to go as far as they did. And, even though towards the end of the season, they got exposed by Ohio State. They got exposed by Notre Dame. But I still like Indiana, and it's a type of team where I don't know how much you trust them to beat teams that are of their same caliber, kind of like last year. But they beat all the teams they had to. They beat all the teams like they're supposed to. Like Old Dominion, they should not lose this game, and I don't think they will. I think they're going to win 27-7. Now moving on, we're going to have number 5 Georgia host Marshall. Now Marshall, I don't think Marshall's going to have a very great season. Listen. Their head coach and a lot of their players all fled to Southern Miss. So it's maybe if they still had all those players, maybe they give Georgia a run for their money. But even then, Georgia's Georgia. It's hard to pick against Georgia. And in terms of the big dogs, I don't know how high they are still in college football. And are they still at that upper echelon of teams? They're certainly top 10, top 5. I don't know. There's a lot of great teams, and Kirby Smart's still a great coach. And I would be honestly so shocked if they found a way to drop this game. So I got to go Georgia 38, Marshall 9. All right, now number 8, Alabama at Florida State. Now, Alabama, I really do like them. They got head coach Kalen DeBoer coming back, who's certainly great. But you look at what they lost, and they lost Jalen Miller to the draft, right? But Alabama's one of those Ohio States where it's feels like they lose players every year, but then they rebound so great, and it just almost doesn't make sense. And they're going to be on the road at Florida State. Florida State had an incredibly bad year. I don't think we've seen Florida State have this bad of a year, at least in my experience of watching college football. Florida State's usually decent, and they won the title with Jameis Winston not that long ago, right? And, Florida State even kind of got snubbed, where if it was a 12-team playoff, they would have made it in that Jordan Travis year where they went undefeated and got left out of the 4-team playoff. But, you look at this year, Alabama, certainly a top 10 team, Kalen DeBoer. And even though I don't have much hype around their QB Ty Simpson, because I remember he had come in for some games where they benched Jalen Milroe and then put him in, and it was just really ugly. Maybe he ends up doing great, but overall success, I don't know how well he will do, but I think he will do good enough to beat Florida State. And so I got to give Alabama the edge, 34-24. I think it could be close, especially with the new quarterback coming in, but I think Alabama gets the job done. Now we're going to have South Dakota at number 22, Iowa State. Now, technically they're number 22, but they played in week 0, so that win over ranked Kansas State isn't taking into effect in the rankings quite yet, although it kind of should, but we'll wait until everyone else plays a game. But Iowa State certainly going to jump up high in the rankings. The Cyclones are looking really great this year. And even though that game in Ireland kind of ugly, but also the field was a soccer field, everyone was kind of, it wasn't the best conditions. And now they're going to play in their stadium in Ames. And, Rocco Becht, I really do like Rocco Becht. And I think I have confidence in him. And honestly, this team is probably my pick to win the Big 12, at least at this moment in time. I'm the most confident in them over anybody. Now, obviously, that can change, and I'm not holding myself to that, but I'm not as confident in any other team as I am in Iowa State right now to do that, and I honestly don't think there's going to be any roadblocks today with South Dakota. I think they're going to win comfortably, 38-10, and I'm really excited to preview next week's game where they're going to play Iowa, but they get them at Ames. But if you look at the past couple of years with that in-state matchup, Iowa State, the road team has won after Iowa's kind of decade of dominance over the Cyclones. Now, as we're going down, we're going to have Nevada at number 2, Penn State. Now, Penn State is an interesting team. I certainly think that they could do a lot this year. Now, I think we're still waiting for them to beat upper echelon teams, especially teams that are of their same caliber. They're kind of like what Indiana was last year, except they're tighter in the games that they lose, where it's like they beat the teams that they have to. This is what they've done for years. They beat the teams that they have to. A lot of times they blow them out, right? And there's like they blow out the teams they're supposed to blow out, but then when it gets to the nitty-gritty, when they play Ohio State, when they even play Michigan, right? It just doesn't go their way. And sometimes it's close, but when you're watching the game, even when it's close, it doesn't feel like it's in grasp. And I don't know why they're struggling so much to get the job done, because this is a really good team. They should be winning some of those games, because they're number 2 in the country. I think that's a little crazy. I get it, though. Troy Franklin, I think he's a good coach. I think he needs to get better in those big game situations, and especially that game against Notre Dame in the playoffs. How do you drop that one? I don't know. I think Notre Dame, I can't believe Penn State managed to throw that one away, and that would have really kind of shut the door on it, where it's just they finally beat an upper echelon team, but now they found a way to lose it. That was yikes. And then you look at their playoff wins last year. Wasn't that great, where they beat SMU at home, then Boise State. It wasn't that tough of a road, and it's that maybe they wouldn't have even been in that Final Four if they had any bit of tougher final road, because they have this roadblock with top teams, and I don't know what it is, and it's really unfortunate because their team is great, and I really like Drew Aller. Drew Aller is probably the best, one of the best QBs this year, because a lot of these teams are losing their QB, and he's one of the only returning ones that we've seen that is proven, right? And probably in the top 5 at least, just because we already know that he can play at that level. And so I think Penn State will win this one comfortably, because this is what they do. This is a team that they'll beat, right? I think they'll win 41-3. Maybe that's a little crazy, but Penn State, if they're a number 2 team in the country, they shouldn't have problems with Nevada. And this is what they do against teams that aren't upper echelon. They put them away. And it's good that they do that, because, we hate on Penn State. But if you look at teams that end up playing close or losing to those teams, it's maybe we should cut Penn State some slack, but it's just because they've kind of been in that bubble of elite teams, and we're just waiting for them to break out. So I hope it happens this year, and maybe it will because their QB's a lot more experienced, and a lot of these other teams are trying to field a new quarterback. So maybe, but I don't know, but I will take Penn State in that matchup. Now, as we're going down, Montana State at Oregon is an interesting West Coast matchup with Montana and Oregon being very close on there. Oregon, they're also going to have to field a new quarterback, but it's a lot better than a lot of these other ones because, who did they bring in a few years ago that transferred from UCLA to be their backup for a year? That's right, Dante Moore. Now, Dante Moore, he was the starter for UCLA his freshman year, and then he transferred to Oregon, and I was really confused when he did because Dylan Gabriel, the now Browns quarterback, he had already transferred to Oregon out of Oklahoma, so I was like, okay, Dylan Gabriel's going to be the starter. Then Dante Moore came over, and I was like, what are they, he knows he's not going to play for a year, right? And maybe that was the plan because he was able to resituate himself. He was a freshman that was tossed into that UCLA situation by Chip Kelly. And this time, he was at Oregon under Dan Lanning and learned from Dylan Gabriel probably at the college. It's like kind of the college version of, think of it as like an Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes or like those types of things where you have like the veteran QB for a year or two and then they, in this case, lived in the NFL, but in most cases, in the NFL they retire. And then that new QB gets a chance to take over. Well, that's what we're going to see in Dante Moore. And I think this is definitely, he's got to be, we'll see how well he does because he hasn't played since UCLA, really, with Dylan Gabriel getting the starts at Oregon. But I think Oregon's going to have an easy showing today. And maybe a little road bumps because it's his first start in a while. But I certainly think that Oregon's going to take this one. And I think Oregon's going to have a very successful season. And I don't think, I've said this a few times, where I don't think there's any roadblocks today. That's kind of what it is. First few weeks where it feels like a lot of teams have gimmies, where these are they're out of conference schedules, at least some of these. But I really do like Oregon, and I think they could have a really successful season. Not going to have any problems against Montana State. I got them 37-10. Now we're going to have Illinois State at number 18, Oklahoma. Oklahoma had an interesting year last year. Not great. First year in the SEC, of course. Didn't go as planned. And Texas ended up having a lot of success in their first year in the SEC. But Oklahoma was struggling. They had lost Dylan Gabriel to the portal. They've lost a lot to the portal. You think about when they lost Caleb Williams in that all those players and that went to USC in the wake of their coach leaving for them. And, Oklahoma then lost Dylan Gabriel, but they weren't doing too much to help him out, and that's probably why he left. Dylan Gabriel, of course, that was the last time they beat Texas. Now, Oklahoma, I think they're going to be better this year. I'm hoping that they contend better with the SEC at least a little bit. They did have an impressive win, a very surprising win over Alabama last year. That was a weird game, if you remember that one. And, now Oklahoma, I think they can, but that SEC is so ridiculous. We'll see how it goes. But I think Oklahoma won't have problems today. I think they take care of business 30-6. Then we're going to have UTSA taking on number 19 in the country, Texas A&M. Now, A&M, they're kind of been an iffy team. It feels like they also kind of beat the teams that they're supposed to, but then honestly, I'm not too sold on this team. I like Texas A&M, but there's always something that happens late in the year, like they start 7-0 or 7-1, and then the wheels fall off. Maybe this is the year that stops happening, or at least in the past few years, that's kind of been their trajectory. But since moving over to the SEC, it's been tough sledding because the SEC is no joke. If you're moving to the SEC or the Big Ten, but the Big Ten has a lot of lackeys, I'd say, and not lackeys, but for comparing the SEC and the Big Ten, I think it does. But when you look at the SEC as a whole, I feel like some of the Big Ten top-heavy teams are better, but you start going through the SEC and it feels like there's so many teams that are like a 7 out of 10, a 7 out of 10, where it starts getting draining, and that they always talk about that SEC schedule. Now, obviously, I don't think Texas A&M is going to have a roadblock today against UTSA. They're at home, and I think they're going to win 31-13. Next is North Dakota at number 17, Kansas State. Now, Kansas State, of course, lost the highly anticipated Farmageddon in Ireland. Very unfortunate for them. And I like Kansas State, and that was just a tough break because that Iowa State team, they almost got that one. Maybe they should have because the field conditions certainly weren't great, but I think Iowa State definitely earned that win. Very tough sledding over there in Ireland in that game. But I think one of the easiest bets you could probably make today is that North Dakota just absolutely folds. Kansas State is going to take everything of that loss out on them now that they're back at their own stadium. And Kansas State's just going to wail on them. I think it's going to be 37-3. I think this is going to be a good comeback for them, especially in the wake of that unfortunate and untimely loss against, another Big 12 opponent. And that could definitely wreck their chances of wanting to get into the Big 12 championship. Because when you look at the whole year of, the whole Big 12 conference as a whole, it feels like there's so many teams that are like 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Like, all these teams are so similar across the board, where you look at it and you start dropping those games against those head-to-heads. You're really going to need those later in the year. So I think it's unfortunate for them that they didn't get that, but I think they're going to have no problems and absolutely wail on North Dakota State 37-3. Next, we got LIU at number 15, Florida. Florida looks really, really stellar this year, and I think if they were in any other conference, they would be ranked a lot higher. It's just kind of unfortunate because when you look at Florida, there are so many teams in the top 25 that are from the SEC. And, I know a lot of those like top teams are Big Ten, where you go like number 2, Ohio State, or number 2, Penn State, number 3, Ohio State, number 7, Oregon. But I feel like across the board, SEC certainly has a handle on it. And we'll see how that happens and how that differs throughout the year. But the SEC, it's just such a difficult schedule for Florida, and I think that's going to be the one thing that keeps them out of the playoffs because, this team really is good, and I really do like what they're doing at Florida, and I think it's sort of unfortunate that their schedule is that ridiculous because I think this is a team that could definitely contend for a playoff spot, and they're probably going to be one of those, 3 to 5 teams that are trying to get the last few spots, and it's it's going to go down to, are you a 2-loss or a 3-loss? Are you, where are you at? And even though I like Florida, who knows if they make that cut. No problems today against LIU, though. They're going to win 41-3, I say. It's going to be nice for them to kick off this season, which, we'll see how it goes down the road, but to kick it off with a win. Next, we got Arkansas Pine Bluff taking on number 23 Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech's an interesting one. Of course, the alma mater of Patrick Mahomes. And Texas Tech, I really do like them this year. They're another one of those Big 12 teams that's hanging outside where it's there's so many good Big 12 teams, and I feel like they all kind of line up in the same kind of area in the rankings. And it's a lot different when Oklahoma and Texas were in that conference where it felt like they were the upper echelon, top 5 to top 10 teams, and then the rest of the teams were recuperating down low, so it kind of made them seem like, yeah, they're still up there with those other power conferences. You take them away, though, then there's no top 10. Then there's no top 5. And I guess that makes sense why Texas and Oklahoma would want to leave, because the competition is much better in other conferences, and probably the respect as well, because they're well, sure, you won your conference, but there wasn't even another top 15 rated team in your conference, so why are you, there's nothing, that's nothing to brag about, where it's oh, okay, it's kind of that kind of deal. But I like Texas Tech in this. Arkansas Pine Bluff, maybe they give them the runs. I don't know, but I don't think so. I got Texas Tech 31-9. Next, we got New Mexico at number 14, Michigan. Now, Michigan's an interesting one. They got all those disciplinaries from the college football or NCAA rather, where a lot of fines being paid out for the whole Spygate cheating scandals that they did in the year of their title. And we'll see how much that affects them. Sharon Moore, of course, their head coach, he took a self-imposed suspension, but he was going to get suspended regardless. That's probably why he took it, to sort of get ahead of it. But I think they'll still take care of business against New Mexico. I'm not sold on that though, but I got them 30-20. If there is an upset, a big upset like that, I could definitely see it being that one with all the adversity that Michigan's going through. But in the past, they've faced adversity and they've rose above it, where you look at when Harbaugh all the games he was suspended, they continued to win. He was suspended against one of those games against Ohio State. Sharon Moore came in, and they won. So, I mean, I still like Michigan in that one. Next, we got Georgia State at 21 Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss is an interesting team. Of course, they lost Jackson Dart, but Lane Kiffin, certainly one of the better coaches in this league. And it looks as if Austin Simmons will be the starter for today's game. I like Ole Miss in this one a lot. I mean, Georgia State, I don't really give them too much of a chance. I think Ole Miss, especially after being left out of the college football playoff, they're going to really smack this one, and they're going to win 35-10. I think they're going to come out swinging in the season opener, and they did lose Jackson Dart, but I still have faith in this Ole Miss team. Next, we got East Texas A&M at number 16, SMU. Now, SMU is one of the more interesting ones where they got into the ACC and they ended up making it all the way to their championship and, of course, ended up dropping it to Clemson. Still got a playoff spot, but then got ran out of the building by Penn State. Now, SMU is very interesting. I think they're going to take business today, no problems with East Texas A&M, but when it comes to the ACC, it'll probably come down to maybe Miami. I don't think SMU is going to be in that conversation. They could make it to that game, but I don't think it's going to be like last year, especially with their season schedule getting tougher. I think SMU takes care of business, though, and they win 30-10. Next, we got Northern Arizona taking on number 11 Arizona State. Now, Arizona State, what a season they just had. They won the Big 12. They had their running back Cam Scatterbo decimating teams, and they nearly pulled it off against Texas. They really should have. If you watched that game, they were in overtime against Texas. Texas had to score a touchdown, and they got them to fourth down. And somehow Texas got an end zone shot on fourth down. They only needed like a few yards, but they went for the end zone, and somehow Arizona State blitzed everybody, and they ended up losing the game because of that. Very unfortunate, because they definitely should have been in that semifinals. Now, will Arizona State get back to that? I don't know. They lost Cam Scatterbo. They do still have Sam Leavitt and Kenny Dillingham. I think he's a great coach. So, honestly, I think they could still, obviously they're still ranked number 11 in this AP Top 25, but I don't know if they get back to that. Maybe they end up making a run at the Big 12 again. I think it's going to come down between them and maybe Iowa State again, but, you look through all the teams, and it's so ridiculous. Kansas State, Texas Tech, and then you go through even further, like Utah they're not ranked, but I think they could certainly make a run at it. So it's really, really tight conference there. No issues today in this in-state game against Northern Arizona. I think they take care of business 28-9. Next, we're going to have Virginia Tech at number 13, South Carolina. South Carolina, it was a slow bump to end the year where they had that Clemson game, and then, they obviously missed the playoffs, but then they ended up losing to Illinois in their bowl game. Very unfortunate downhill for them, but they're ranked 13th, and they had some really great wins last year. I think South Carolina could definitely make a run in the SEC. To the big game, I don't know. It's just the SEC is, there's just so many great teams in the SEC. It's hard to really pick a team to go all the way and have that much confidence in if you're not going, oh, Georgia, oh, Alabama, that's not So I think it's going to be a very interesting season for the SEC and South Carolina. And I would be very surprised if the Hokies of Virginia Tech gave South Carolina much trouble today. I think it's going to be South Carolina 38-20. Now, here's one that I'm really excited about. We're going to have Albany at Iowa. Now, even though that doesn't sound like that interesting of a game, as a huge Iowa fan, I'm very hyped for this game. And Iowa, of course, bringing in Mark Gronowski, the transfer QB out of South Dakota State. It could be very interesting, and it could be a great year for Iowa. It's currently not ranked, but, you start looking at this. Kirk Ferentz, of course, coming back. He's always going to have the defense in shape. Him and Parker are incredible at keeping that defense in shape, and it feels like every year it's like, man, if they had an offense. Oh, man, if they can get that offense clicking. If they could just have an offense, they could really make a run or at least slip into the playoffs, maybe now that it's 12 teams. And, you start looking at this. Currently not ranked, but their schedule is tough. Now, next week, they're going to play number 22 Iowa State, and they're going to have to go on the road for that. But then they face number 20 Indiana, but they get them at home. They face number 2 Penn State and number 7 Oregon, but they get them at home. And so outside of those 4 games, I think they're going to win the rest of them. So I think you say at least 8, and then I think your ceiling is maybe 10, where you start talking about those head-to-heads and, can they really contend? Because obviously they're not ranked yet. but I think they could certainly be with Mark Gronowski, and if they can get that offense situated, this team could be scary. Now, obviously, I don't think there's going to be any issues taking on Albany this week, where Gronowski's going to face an FCS team where he was the division that he was last season, and I think they're going to win easily, 41-10. And I got faith in this Hawkeye team to take care of business. Now we got Hawaii at Arizona. Now this is an interesting one. I'm really coming around on Hawaii. Now maybe this is a stupid pick, but Hawaii just upset Stanford. What a game that they just did there. And they won by a field goal. And Arizona's a good team, but I don't know why I feel I feel like I had to pick Hawaii just out of just for fun. And I really love Hawaii. And just the game that they did last week, there's a good chance they get killed, so maybe this is a dumb take, but I got Hawaii 30-27. Next, we got Colorado State at Washington. Now, of course, you got Jed Fish coming in as the Washington coach, and he did last year following DeBoer leaving after that great national championship appearance season. Now, I don't think they're going to have trouble against Colorado State. I like Washington in this. And Washington, they lost so many people, and they had such a tough schedule following that national championship. This is, for sure, for me, going to be a bit of a rebound. Maybe not as much as Washington fans and Washington, the team, would hope, but it's definitely going to be better than what they put up last season. I got them 31-24. Next, I got Utah at UCLA. Now, UCLA, I know they're bringing in Nico, and I know he could be great, but I like the way they play football in Utah, And you start looking at Utah. Kyle Whittingham, probably his final season at Utah. We'll see if he ends up retiring, where people had thought like last year would have been if they didn't play so poorly. And this year, they got Devin Dampier coming in. He's a great dual threat guy. And, I think they're going to do enough, and I think they're going to get ahead of UCLA. I do. I think it's going to be Utah 24-21. I think they are going to come into UCLA's house, which isn't too far away from Utah. And I think they're going to take care of business. Next, we got an in-state game, Ball State at Purdue. Now, Purdue is really not that great this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if somehow they let Ball State win this game. I don't see it, but I don't think that's going to happen, but I could see Purdue, just because I don't think they're that great, finding a way to lose this game. But Ball State, of course, in the MAC, but even though they're in the MAC, they're still a lower echelon team in that conference. We'll see if that changes this year, but I got to go Purdue 27-17. Next, we got Mississippi State at Southern Miss. Now, Mississippi State, despite being in the SEC, I think this definitely feels like one of those teams where it's like, yeah, they're in the SEC, but like they get kicked around by all the SEC teams that they play. And I don't like Mississippi State at all. In terms of, not that I hate them, but in terms of them, I don't think they're a great team, is what I'm trying to say. And Southern Miss, of course, bringing all those guys over from Marshall. I like Southern Miss. I think this is a solid upset pick, especially with Southern Miss being at home. I think this is one of the easier upset picks. Not that they're going to win, but I think this is one of the easier ones to make. I got Southern Miss 33-31. I think it's going to be a very close one because Mississippi State, still an SEC team, but I think that Southern Miss is going to do enough to get ahead. All right, now with all that being said, I'm going to get into these top 10 matchups. Highly anticipated games. Now, number 1 Texas at number 3 Ohio State, and man, this could be a great game. It's going to kick it off. It's going to be at noon. Texas, Ohio State. Huge implications in week 1. Are you serious? Man, this is going to be very interesting. And Texas, of course, ranked number 1, but they're going on the road in the shoe to take number 3 Ohio State. You start looking through Ohio State and you go, okay, what did they lose? What do they have coming back? And you can name quite a bit that they lost. Will Howard, Emeka Egbuka, Quinshad Judkins, Travion Henderson. And you're like, can they rebound? Well, Jeremiah Smith, absolutely astonishing prodigy at Ohio State. That might be the separator in this game. And then you look on that defensive ball, they still have Caleb Downs as well. And also Carnell Tate is a great wide receiver for Ohio State. So, this could be very interesting, and I don't know. I think it comes down to the fact that Julian Sayin, it's going to be his first start ever. It's like your first start ever is against a Texas team that is very stout and is currently ranked number 1 in the country. Like, that's your first game ever. That's going to be such a tough road for this young QB. And I know that people are saying, like, he's got the keys to the Lamborghini. They're like, just drive it. Like, don't do anything. Just put the keys in the Lamborghini, because you got Jeremiah Smith, and, of course, it's Ohio State. So it's like, we can talk about what they lost all day, but in terms of, like, how it actually affects them, it feels like they're constantly rejuvenating talent year after year, because we're talking about, like, Jeremiah Smith and talking about how they lost Emeka Egbuka, but, I mean, there's so many wide receivers that they've had over the years. What is it, Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave? Like, it's really ridiculous where it's like they continue to pump out these NFL draft pick receivers where it's like, is that just going to happen again? Does it not matter who they toss out there because they just get the best wide receiver recruits anyway? Now, when it comes down to my pick here, I'm really torn, but Arch Manning, I trust Arch Manning more than I trust Julian Sayin. He had some starts last year, and Arch Manning, he really does look great, and he's already had games in this offense. And if it were at Texas, I wouldn't even be hesitant on this, and I would say Texas for sure, but I still give Texas the edge, but very hesitantly. I got Texas 34-27 in the shoe. Next, we got number 9 LSU at number 4 Clemson. Now, LSU, of course, being led by Brian Kelly. They're going to come into the, Clemson Tigers house. And, of course, Dabo Swinney being the head coach for Clemson. Now, LSU, I could definitely see them coming in and winning. You got Garrett Nussmeier coming back, and he's really starting to take some strides. I think LSU is going to have their best year in a while. I mean, you could even go and say since 2019, because, I mean, I don't know if they're ever going to do better than that. Probably not, because that year is absolutely ridiculous, and we probably won't see anything like that replicated at the college football level again. And for Clemson, I mean, I like Cade Klubnik, and this is an interesting one because Clemson is at home, but I'm going to take the underdog. I like Garrett Nussmeier and LSU to come in and steal one and win 45-42 on the road. Now then we got number 6 Notre Dame at number 10 Miami. Now this one is very interesting. Notre Dame, of course, lost Riley Leonard, but they still have one of, if not the best running back in the country in Jeremiah Love. He's absolutely insane. And you look at Miami and you look at what they gained. I mean, they got the Georgia QB Carson Beck. I could definitely see Miami pulling off something here. I mean, I like Notre Dame, though, and I like more Marcus Freeman. And I know that I almost said Morgan Freeman. And Notre Dame, certainly a great team. And I think this is going to be a really tough one on the road. But we saw last year with what Cam Ward had to do to keep them in these games where he had to score and score and score. And I think Notre Dame is not going to let them do that. I really do like Notre Dame here. Their defense is very stout. And, I mean, their run game is always stout. And I know, like, losing Riley Leonard, certainly a bummer, but he wasn't like they only had him for 1 year because he was the transfer out of Duke. And I think they can do enough with C.J. Carr to win on the road. So I got Notre Dame 27-24. Man, I'm very excited for this year and this season. I mean, just week 1, we have so many great games and so many top 10 matchups. I mean, there's so many games across the board that I'm excited to watch. And this week 1 is really going to tell us a lot of what we need to know throughout the year. So it's going to be a very interesting game and very interesting setup to see how the whole season's going to play out. And we got a lot of top teams really testing to see how good are they? Are they pretenders? Can they keep it up? How many of these top 10 teams are going to end up coming out on top and separate themselves at the top of the game? This is going to be a very interesting game, very interesting week showdown. And I really like everything that we got going on in week 1, and so happy that college football is back, and we're going to have several more weeks to come. And, of course, Lee Corso having his last college game day today. Make sure to tune into that, but by the time this is posted, that might already be over, unfortunately. But maybe try to watch clips on YouTube. Just give Lee Corso all the appreciation because everything that he's done for the sports world and the broadcasting world is certainly tremendous. We love you, Lee Corso. Thank you for everything that you've done on college football, and we really appreciate all of your hard work over the years. And that's going to do it for my first college football episode ever. I've had clips on the channel before of my predictions, but this is the first one that I've done where I've really gone into all of them and really talked to it as an overview. I should have more coming, but this will be the first one and my first overall predictions video. So it's going to be really exciting. I'm really excited for this next year of football, and this first week is certainly setting up to be absolutely tremendous. This is the Ben Buzz starring Benny King. Thanks for tuning in.